What's good, YouTube? It's White Mike, and today it is August 28th. This is a Wednesday, and there have been quite a few cameras announced, including the Sony cameras that were announced this morning. Let's get into it. All right, before we jump into this, I just wanted to start by saying, I know I haven't posted in a while, but I am editing some videos that I am trying to post. So that includes what's in my bag and 17 to 28 Tamron. And I also was trying to shoot one for fixing my Sony a7S II, but as you can see, this is what I'm left with. It's not broken though. It was broken, but it's still broken, but we're gonna try to fix it. Anyway, let's jump into the camera announcements. Notably, there have been 3 different brands that have announced cameras, that being Canon, Panasonic, and Sony, and I have these in the order of importance, at least for me. It may be different for you, but I woke up this morning to see that there was a Sony announcement, and let's just say that it was very underwhelming. But first, before we jump into all that, and again, I'll leave links to all the announcements, or at least a page that has the announcement information. I will also have the video playing, if there is one, of the announcement somewhere in the screen here while I'm reading off the specs, as well as probably listing the specs off. That's just normally what I do. Any feedback is appreciated on these videos, so leave comments below. Subscribe to the channel right now if you haven't already, and let's jump into it. So, notably, Canon released there's a lot of noise outside. Notably, Canon released 2 cameras, the 90D and the M6 Mark II. Now these cameras are pretty much the same exact specs. They probably have the same sensors. The only difference is one's mirrorless and one isn't. I don't really understand. I guess they're just tailoring this towards people who are already in these systems using these cameras. But, I mean, as far as specs goes, they're kind of mediocre to me, and it's stuff that, I mean, Sony's been doing this for ages. I guess if you shoot Canon and you have one of these types of cameras, it's not that bad. If you already bought lenses and you're invested in the system, then go for it, but personally, not something I'm going to pick up. 32.5 megapixel sensors. These are APS-C crop sensors. They have dual pixel autofocus. Also, they finally shoot 4K, most of these cameras now, uncropped, which isn't surprising because it's a crop sensor camera. All of their full frame 4K is pretty much crop. So the fact that crop is uncropped makes sense. Digic 8 processor, 4K UHD up to 30. Hopefully they didn't get rid of 24p like they have been, and that just means that 24 and 30. Who knows? I don't know why they keep getting rid of 24p. It's really stupid. 30 is not a deal breaker. Honestly, you can get away with it. People make too big of a deal out of it. Honestly, I think it's fine. But just leave 24 in there. Why? Why not? 1080p Full HD up to 120 frames per second. Again, Sony's been doing this for the longest. Initially, Sony had you know, like a 2.2 times crop on 120. Now it's all full pixel readout 120, and it's awesome. 5,481 autofocus points you can select, so those are probably just all the phase detect points. Of course, phase detect has a sensor on every single pixel, so that's understandably why there are so many focus points. Sometimes you can have too many, sometimes you can, I don't know, this kind of like, I like a median in between. I don't want too many, but I also don't want not enough. So these, back in the day, DSLRs, if you never used one, you had something like 6, maybe 9 autofocus points, and then the next model up was like 11 or 21. It was just really weird. I don't know. I don't miss that shit at all. I love my Sonys and all their focus points. And the Canon dual pixel is really awesome too. I really think that Sony and dual pixel are like on par now with all the new IAF tracking in video and the new tracking processes and the touch to focus. I think they're pretty close now. Whereas before, without the tracking update and the eye autofocus, the dual pixel probably had a beat. But as far as face tracking, Sony's always been pretty good at that. Electronic shutter, 1/16,000 of a second, which I guess, I mean, that's good. Most of these smaller cameras normally cap out at like 1/4,000 or 1/8,000. So 1/16,000 on the electronic shutter is, I mean, it's electronic shutter, so whatever. That's cool, I guess. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. I know those are listed as features, but those are things that mostly every camera has now. So I think we can stop listing those. I'm just saying, like if you bought a cell phone and it listed Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, do you really care? You should assume it has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. It's 2019. Needless to say, I don't hate Canon. If they come out with a camera that's a mirrorless camera that I feel is better than Sony, hell, I'd switch. And it has nothing to do with the colors, anything like that. I don't know why I still got these in. It has nothing to do with that. I just, I don't care. Whatever camera is right for me at the time. The EOS R, just like the 6D Mark II, got a lot of slack when it was released, and then everyone seemed to switch to it. The same exact thing happened with EOS R. So everyone that I've watched seems to have switched to the EOS R. I don't know if it's that because Canon sent them one, or if it's because they just like the quality you get out of it, because it does have really nice bit rates, but the 4K crop for me kills me, and the fact that if you use an adapter, I believe some of the features don't work. I mean, the EOS R is still a great camera, and I would honestly like to try it. I don't know, I just think they can do better than that, and I think they will do better than that, and maybe Sony has to put something else out to make them up their game. But I mean, that's kind of been Canon's game from the start, you know, cripple our mirrorless and DSLR cameras, that way we have our cinema line to push to other people. But I don't think anyone's gonna buy one over the other. If they want a cinema camera, they're gonna get a cinema camera. They don't care what an EOS R can do. Even if it did the same thing, it's not gonna be as good, not as modular. It's not made for a cinema setup. So I don't see why they don't just go ahead and cross those boundaries. But to make a long story short, I am not impressed by these cameras, and I don't understand why they're still making DSLRs. Just kill the DSLR already. It's dead, it's done. I understand people have them, but give them incentives to upgrade. Let them trade in their camera, give them some money or something. Like, I don't know. There's a shitload of Canon shit out there already. But yeah, let's move on to the next one. So the next announcement that I want to talk about was the Panasonic Lumix S1H, and this is a beast of a camera. Now everyone thinks that this is gonna make Sony release the A7S 3, 4, whatever you want to call it. I honestly think it's gonna be A7S 4. There's no point in going back to 3. They've skipped numbers before, whatever. I also got part of this Sony announcement right initially. It's still a little underwhelming, but the S1H has 6K video with dual native ISO, which is really great. This is pretty much, to me, a cinema camera. It's big, it's huge. I don't think it has very great autofocus. Probably has the same autofocus as like all the other Panasonic Lumix cameras, which is why I don't really use them that much. But a full frame GH5 pretty much is what you're getting here with 6K. You have 6K 24p at a 3:2 ratio, which is like cinema 6K. Then if you go to the standard 16:9 ratio, you get a 5.9K 10-bit on all of these. Cinema 4K 60, and that is with a super 35mm crop, so 1.5x crop, which is fine. I mean, I would take 4K 60 on a Sony with a 1.5 crop, no problem, no questions asked, just give it to me. The native ISOs are 640 and 4000 without increasing noise, so you can shoot at either 640 on a bright sunny day. You're probably gonna still need NDs, or ISO 4000 in a lower light situation, and you have the same noise level on both, which is awesome. Dual native ISOs are awesome. You also get 5-axis image stabilization. All the lenses mostly have OIS, or optical image stabilization, so that's great. So you get 6.5 stops of stabilization when you, I believe, pair those together. The dual UHS 2 cards, fully articulating LCD, which looks really weird. It kind of sticks out on the back. It flips up and flips to the side, but it's like, I don't know, it doesn't really fit. And I think most of that's because they have this intake exhaust system, so air passes through the side and comes out the other end, so it kind of forces the camera to be even bigger than it already would have been. Unlimited recording times, which is something you get from Panasonic all the time. Waveform monitors built in. Time code for syncing cameras, so if you have multiple, you can sync them all together. Vlog, HLG, extensive weather sealing up to, I believe, -10 degrees Celsius, and dust splash resistant. They've always been really good at their weather resistance, and I honestly don't think this is gonna force Sony's hand. From what I've seen in the past, the user base for both of these cameras are completely different. Like, there's people who are dedicated to Panasonic Lumix and don't care that the autofocus isn't that great because they manual focus, and there's the Sony users who love their autofocus and love their Sony ecosystem, and there are a few groups in the middle that don't really care. They just jump from camera to camera, whichever one is the best, and those are more towards the people where Sony would have to please. But I don't think this forces Sony's hand. I think they're in a different space, honestly. I don't see the same users using both. Now, for like wedding filmographers, a lot of them that already use GH5s will probably get this. Anyone who's already using Panasonic Lumix cameras are probably gonna get this. The only problem is all their Micro Four Thirds shit is not gonna work anymore, so they're gonna have to go and get new lenses. I don't know if they adapt or not, but if they did, it's full frame, so I don't know how that would work. It probably wouldn't work. There's a lot of noise outside my window, so hopefully that shit's not coming across here. If it is, I'm sorry. But as far as this camera goes, I'm really impressed with this camera. It's definitely something that I want to try out. If you want to get a more in-depth kind of on-hands review, go look at Locke's channel. Locke had one in his hands, a prototype, I believe, and it's really interesting. He talks about all the features and how it looks, how it feels in the hand. And he seems to like it, so he's definitely one of those people that's probably gonna have one for sure. I don't think this is gonna make anyone switch from an A7 III or from an EOS R, unless, like I said, they only went to Sony because they were a Panasonic shooter and they were waiting on full frame. Then in that case, they probably will switch. But I really want to see what Sony does. Again, I love my autofocus, so that's the reason I won't use Panasonic. But this is really impressive. If Panasonic ever gets their autofocus down with a nice phase detect system with like a dual pixel competitor, shit, I would probably switch then. I would probably definitely switch then for sure, because they always have nice bit rates and stuff. I tried out the GH5, took it to South Beach and shot a bunch of stuff, but I didn't really like the camera or the results it gave me. They looked nice, but that depth of field on the Micro Four Thirds just wasn't it for me. But I guarantee you, I'd probably love this one in the same manner. But like I said, I'm not gonna go and switch to this one. It is about $4,000 pretty much, which is a lot. It's like twice the price of the A7 III. I don't know. Great camera though. And last but not least, let's go to the Sony announcements. The first things first, Sony released the date for the A9 firmware 6.0, which is real-time animal IAF, interval shooting with time-lapse, and that is coming in September. I don't know why they made the A9 users wait that long, but that firmware upgrade's coming. So I don't know if that means we're not gonna see an A9 II yet, because they're still trying to get these features in there. I'm gonna bet we don't see an A9 II this year. That's just me, because of this firmware update situation, and it's kind of on par with the A7R4 and all that stuff, except for the body and the way it feels. A9 II probably next year, just saying. And it may be because they're gonna iron out like 6K or 4K 60 or something, which the A9, even though it doesn't have picture profiles, is really badass in low light. The other smaller announcements were that Sony actually announced 2 lenses, APS-C lenses, with their 2 new APS-C cameras. Before I jump into the cameras, they also announced the Sony 16-55 2.8G lens. This is more like your 24-70, but it's more like a 24-82 for your crop sensor cameras. It does not have OSS, so that's one of the downfalls. It does have a focus hold ring, manual focus ring that they say works really good, almost close to like a real focus ring on a manual focus lens. Dust moisture resistance. It also has the XD linear motor for a really fast autofocus that they say can keep up with the camera. So that's something they're putting into all their newer lenses, so it should be really fast. I've never had a problem with the lenses that don't have the XD linear motor, so I don't know if it's a selling tactic or what, but it doesn't hurt to have new features in these lenses. But it is $1,400 and available in October 2019. Personally, if I wanted a lens for my crop sensor camera in this range, and I don't need that much reach because I have other primes or whatnot, I'm gonna go with the Tamron 17-28 2.8 and save about what, 600 bucks maybe? Yeah, about 600 bucks. Take that $600 and do something else with it. I'm not doubting that this lens is gonna be awesome, but it's kind of like the 24-70 G Master. It's like this much better than the Tamron, maybe, but the Tamron's normally sharper, but the Sony probably focuses this much better. But the price difference, you cannot, like $2,000 for that 24-70 and $800 something for the 20-75. I'm taking the Tamron all day. So I don't know, if Sony wants to keep competing, I mean, there are people who are loyal and say I only use Sony lenses and they're professional and they just buy that shit up. Most of us aren't like that. And if they want to compete, man, these prices gotta come down a little bit. $1,400. Great lens, great announcement for those APS-C shooters who are looking for a different lens. Get the Tamron 7028, you will not regret it. The other lens was the 70 to 350 millimeter, 4.5 to 6.3 GOSS. The only problem is this is an APS-C lens. Now they said we only had the 55 to 210, which that's a piece of shit. Don't buy that lens. The 55 to 210 is like horrible. That lens is trash. They had like a 70 to 300. It's just really expensive, and they have other lenses too that are kind of in that range that are full frame, and I don't see a problem with using those lenses on your crop sensor camera. But to their point, this is the only other crop sensor zoom that they have. It is OSS, but it is a 4.5 to 6.3 70 to 350, which is equivalent to a 105 to 525. So I mean, if you shoot birds or something like that, awesome. I don't know, if it's not like an f4 or something, it doesn't really impress me. It's kind of like a super zoom kit lens. I've never been a fan of these long lenses that go up to like a 6.3. The performance is okay, not all that great, but whatever. I guess to keep the size down, this is why they did that, because it only weighs 22 ounces. It does have a focus hold button, AF, MF switch, zoom lock, and it's only $1,000, so not too bad, but still a little expensive for my taste for what it is. And that's gonna be November 2019. So those are the two lenses, the A9 firmware. And now with those two lenses, they have 54 different E-mount lenses. Not a lot, but more than enough. The big announcement, what everyone was and was not waiting for, is first of all, let's go with this one, the a6100. So why they felt the need to update the a6000, I have no clue. But this is probably gonna drop those a6000s down that are already like 350. Probably gonna drop them down a little bit more when these become like more in the wild in the used market. So basically you have an a6000 called the a6100, still no headphone jack, no IAF and video, no weather sealing, no IBIS. You have your standard MP batteries, which are, you know, these ones right here that I've been using. You have no HLG and no log, and it's $750 in October. So what are the updates pretty much? You still have the 24.2 megapixel sensor. It now shoots 4K, it now does time lapse. It does have the flip up screen from the a6400, so that's a plus. You have 425 phase detect and 425 contrast detect points. Real-time tracking, ISO 100 to 32,000 with an expanded from 50 to 102,400. Again, no IBIS or none of that stuff. And I mean, for $750, it's not bad, especially if you do photography, but you're gonna have that a6000 kind of plasticky body with no weather sealing. It just doesn't feel as good. And without HLG or any type of log profile, I think the a6100 is a great starter camera for like photos. I wouldn't use it for video. My only thing is you could get a used a6300 for the same price, pretty much, if not less. So why would you buy the a6100 other than to just use it in a vlogging manner? It's pretty much like an a6400 in an a6100 body. I think the only reason they did this was to give it 4K and a vlogging screen. Just let the a6000 die. Make the 6300 the new 6000. Well, you already have the 6400. It's hella confusing now. Anyways, don't want to talk about that camera anymore. That was a really, I don't know why it's their announcement. It's like for the soccer moms that want a new camera that does 4K with a flip up screen. Very cheap camera though if you want to get into like vlogging, but I would probably go with the 6400. It's a better camera. And along with all this stuff, especially on all these new Sony cameras, you're getting improved colors, full pixel readout of course, time-lapse flip-up screen, and the mic inputs obviously. Now the bigger announcement, this is the professional APS-C camera that everyone was waiting for. This camera was supposed to be A5 or some shit like that, and when I saw that I was like, why wouldn't they just make it the a6600 or a6700? So that's the only part that I knew might be different, and it turns out it is the a6600. So I don't think there is an A5. I don't think there is some big professional crop sensor camera. I think they're sticking with this format and they're going with it. The reason I say that is it has the exact same specs as the a6100. The only difference is you're getting that mic input jack with the headphone jack. You're getting real-time IAF and video. You're getting also the IBIS the HOG, the flip up screen, the S-Log, and you're also getting the Z battery. So the grip is a little bit bigger and it has a Z battery in it. So those bigger batteries with better battery life, you're getting that in this camera. So that's probably the biggest selling point of this camera as to why you would buy it. Now, again, let me read off the full specs. 24.2 megapixel sensor, 4K, time-lapse, flip-up screen like the a6400, mic, headphone jacks, of course, 425 phase detect points, 425 contrast detect points, real-time tracking. It also has real-time IAF and video. So that's what the 6500 doesn't have. You also have ISO 100 to 32,000, just like the a6100, and expandable 50 to 102/400. You also have 5-axis image stabilization, so it's like you're getting your a6400 with IBIS. Sony IBIS is okay. You're getting the Z battery, bigger battery, HOG, S-Log, and this is all for a price of $1,400 for body only, which is really steep. I'm gonna be honest. Really steep. So we have the a6100 coming in at $750 for body only, $850 with a 16 to 50 millimeter, the a6600 with just the body, $1,400. If you want the 18 to 135, it's $1,800. So would I be buying an a6600? I don't know. I will probably end up with one some way or another, whether that's buying or trading someone. I will probably end up with one. I'd trade my a6300 for one, but I wouldn't pay the $1,400 for it. I'll probably wait until this camera drops to about the $1,000, $1,200 mark before I go after it, because you're only $600 away from a new a7 III, or about $200 to $300 away from a used a7 III. And I would take the a7 III over the 6600 any day. So $1,400 is really steep. I don't know why it's that price. That should have been a $1,000 or $1,200 camera. These prices keep going up, man. I'm telling you, this a7 IV is gonna be about $2,300. It's not gonna be $2,000 again. I just don't see it happening. Maybe that's them just paying for their R&D or something. I should probably do a video on the a6600 versus a6500. Personally, if you have an a6500 and you don't need real-time IAF, you don't need a bigger battery, you don't need a flip-up screen, don't upgrade. That's the main features. If you don't need IAF and video, don't need a bigger battery, and you don't need a flip-up screen, or the tracking features, or time-lapse. Well, what is that, like 5 features? Okay, so time-lapse, real-time tracking, IAF and video, Z battery, flip-up screen. So if you don't need those 5 things, don't upgrade. If you're doing fine now, don't upgrade. There's no point in you upgrading unless you can get top dollar for that 6500, put a little bit of money with it. But again, you're close to buying an a7 III, so why? I don't, this is probably not the announcement everyone wanted. I'm not too excited about these cameras. We wanted dual card slots. We wanted 4K 60 at least. Those 2 things are not here. So I don't know if the APSC line is ever gonna get dual card slots. They would have to change the body or actually release this so-called A5 or whatever it's called. That's just my take on it. I'm not really excited about any of the Sony stuff except for the a6600, maybe if the price comes down. And I don't have an A9 to take benefits of that firmware. So of all the things that I talked about today, again, we talked about the Canon 90D, the M6 Mark II. We talked about the Panasonic S1H, the Sony lenses and cameras that just got announced. I just want to know down in the comments down below, what do you think about these announcements? Or is there anything that was announced that you are excited about? Anything that didn't get announced that you're looking for? Or do you not even care? Because your opinion matters too. But yeah, that's just my opinion and my take on those announcements from those 3 big brands, you know, Canon, Panasonic, Sony. I know that Sony plans on announcing more stuff during the year, so hopefully they announce more. I'm expecting an a7 IV announcement in the fall, available around like February. A7S, unless it's an a7S IV, I don't see it happening. The a7 IV, if that does not have 4K 60 or anything like that, you can probably bet that there's an a7S. But I think the a7 IV is gonna have the same specs as the a7R4, but with less megapixels. That's just the way I see it. But who knows? Again, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified anytime I upload or just get a bunch of spam from YouTube. Leave a comment down below, I'll get back to you immediately, and hopefully I can be a little more consistent. That's a wrap. Oh my god, that's stupid. So in the H6, let's say you have channel 1 on, you forgot to turn on channel 3, you gotta stop recording before you can turn on channel 3. That's pretty dumb. Hold on, I'm taking a social media break. Okay, anyway. Woo! Been a minute. One of those should work. One of those should work. If the A7 III doesn't have 6K or 4K 60s, then you can bet that an A7S is coming out. I think the A7, did I say A7 III? Anyways,